Let's bring to the microphone Brother Minister Jabril Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but He, and Muhammad is His servant. Brothers and sisters, I'm very honored, first blessed to get here alive. A lot of people who were here yesterday rather, are not here today. So I'm thankful, first of all, for that. When you get up in a plane, when white people are piloting the plane, they just tell you what they're going to do. I mean, they leave God totally out of the picture. We're going to do this and this and this and this, you know. It doesn't happen like that. They said that the plane was due in from Orlando, Florida. It'll be here about 11 o'clock. We'll clean it up, and you will get on it at 11:15. It'll be on its way. It didn't even take off at 12:28. It's better to be humble. It's better to really talk strong about what you really have some say-so over. And that which you don't have any say-so over, leave it to the one who has power over that. The Muslim pilots, they pray. Before the plane takes off, they beg Allah for help. That's a world of difference. Now, brothers and sisters, I don't really have a subject as such. I just want to tell you what's in my mind, a very general overview for the next 2 days. But for tonight, I want to raise this question. And I hope that you make your label like this. Does God study? Question mark. Why? Question mark. 2 questions, okay? And I want to ask you, we don't have the microphones to float around, and if you want to help me with some of this, I'd appreciate it, because I'll just randomly ask a few of you a couple of questions. Does God study? To a lot of people, just raising that kind of question seems to denigrate God. But it does say that God makes judgments, doesn't it? This great day called the Day of Judgment is the day of God's judgment. Well, what precedes judgment? If you arrive at a judgment, then prior to that you were not judging. Right? If you arrive at a decision, God makes decisions, does He not? Well, at what point does He make a decision? Is the decision from way back before the party was even ever born? How far back does His decisions go? Is there a point in time when He makes a decision? The Bible and Quran says there's certain circumstances when God changes His mind. Have you ever heard of that? Did you read that? Did you ever read where God reflects? Where God muses. You know what the word muses mean? Go look it up. M-U-S-E-S. So does God study? Well, if you take exactly what we've been taught, if you already are acquainted with it, you know He does. But suppose you were new to this teaching or didn't know it. The idea of God studying might sound weird, and even might sound like you putting God down or reducing Him to the level of men and women, common people, ordinary people. Do you study? You have a job? Is it something beyond washing dishes? Washing dishes doesn't require a PhD, does it? Have you ever swept the floor? Does it require a great deal of study to sweep a floor? But it does require more knowledge to clean a floor, a terrazzo floor, or a floor in one of these big buildings, doesn't it? You can't clean them any old kind of way. So the more difficult or the more skill that's involved in the thing that you're doing, then the more knowledge you have to have. Now, to become a surgeon like Dr. Alim, can you become a surgeon after 3 weeks? Have you ever gone, or would you go to a dentist who hung his sign out saying, I just graduated after 15 minutes experience, and I went to school about 4 weeks. Would you go to that person to have him work on your teeth? Why? Why? Because of what you've heard about how long it takes a person to become a dentist. Probably none of us in this room are dentists. Huh? Okay. Now, not counting her. The rest of us just would not really know how long does it take to learn the mouth. But you would imagine it takes a while to learn that. And you would not go to a dentist's office if he just got out of school and worked on maybe 2 sets of teeth, and only went to 2 months of school. Would you trust a person who was driving an 18-wheeler who only had 1 day of experience and 2 days of training? There's a lot of things that you do. What do you do for a living, brother? What do you do? Bellman. That requires some intelligence, because if you frown at people, then you get fired. You have to have some nice exterior, don't you? Okay, what do you do, brother? Okay, network engineering. What do you do, sister? You do what? Okay, you're in school for cosmetology. Okay. What do you do, sister? Director of musical theater. Now that requires far more skill than sweeping a floor, doesn't it? What do you do, brother? Security. What do you do? You secure the bank, the World Bank on top of that. Okay. What do you do, brother? Yeah. Well, what did you do? Okay, and what did you do before that? And if money was no object, what would you prefer to do? If money was no object and you had the time, what would you study to do? Medicine. What kind of medicine? What kind? Kidney disease. That requires skill, doesn't it? So what am I touching? I'm touching a couple of things. Number one, human beings have to acquire knowledge. And the more complex the thing is that you want to do, then the more education you have to have and training. Not just knowledge, but then you have to do something. You have to repeat so that you can develop a skill, so that you can do this thing without hesitation, so that people don't die in case it's maybe an emergency, you're rushing somebody to the hospital, whatever. You see my point? Now, brothers and sisters, of all the things that are difficult to do, what is the most difficult thing? Can you imagine? What would you say, just off the top of your head? Yes, sir. Self-discipline? Anybody else want to take a guess at it? Or what do you think is it? What comes to your mind as a hard thing to do? Just name it. Pardon me? Regulate the heavens and the earth. That's an interesting job, isn't it? What else? It says it tires him not, huh? In the scripture. What else? Okay, now there you hit it. Listen at this. Little simple piece of logic. Everybody's doing something every day in the week, whether it's the thing they would like to do or not. They're doing something. Of all the things that, some people can do some things easier than others. Is that correct? Yes. Now, as you progress, I'm making this short, as you progress up or down or across the ladder of difficulty, you find fewer and fewer people able to do that thing, whatever it may be. When you get to the last thing, you find almost nobody. And that is something akin to going out to the graveyard. Do you have graveyards in this city? Yes, sir. How long would it take you standing out there in a warm day, summertime, on a nice, comfortable couch or something? How long would it take you with a bullhorn to get someone to come up out of the grave? How long would that take? Would you consider that impossible? All right. Then if you back away from that and ask what is next to that, that's raising the dead spiritually. Get the point? Yes. Now, do you consider yourself the chosen of God? I'm talking about you in this room. Or do you have doubts about it? Yes, you do. But have you ever thought that possibly you personally were handpicked by God? You personally were seen long time before you were born, and there were circumstances, course corrections, whatever, that went on by God in your life right up to the point where you came and heard this teaching. And even if you didn't accept right then, there was extra help being administered to you by people you don't even know and don't even know how to contact. I'm not talking about the brother and sister or people that you saw, your friends, relatives, but I'm talking about people that you don't know, have never met, who helped you in the process of accepting this. Have you thought of it just like that? And the problem with us, we don't know who the hell we are. We can never learn our individuality, who we are as persons, our own person, this person, that person, that person, that person, unless you first get clear on our collective identity. You will never get straight or clear on your individual identity unless you have thoroughly accepted our collective identity, and neither can be done without some study. Now, if the resurrection of the dead, and we didn't take a lot of time to prove it, but it can be proven, I mean, absolutely proven, is the hardest thing. It's next to the impossible. Jabril Muhammad said one day, God can't lie. To get born, you have to have a mother and a father. And when you really sure enough dead, you ain't not coming back. Notwithstanding the fact that we got some high-tech Muslims in the country here and there who say they are followers of Minister Farrakhan, who have some kind of Ouija board understanding about coming back. But the reality is, once you are really, really, really dead, you never come back. Now that's straight up hard reality, which once thoroughly digested, develops a greater appreciation for life. And those things that keep you on the planet. Got that? When you really know that when you're dead, you're gone forever, and eating one meal a day will keep you here much longer than 2, 3, or 4 times a day, that it's not worth it to get so worried and frustrated and stuff that you say, well, I got to solve this by eating, that's going to take me out of here. Then your attitude changes, doesn't it? You find yourself picking up how to eat to live more often. And every now and then you read it, wow, I didn't see that. Has that ever happened to you? Happens. I've been in the nation 45 years. It still happens. Now look, my dear brothers and sisters, this is one of the biggest problems we got right now. We don't know who the hell we are. We don't know. You ask Muslims really on the QT, do you really feel you was chosen? And privately, I don't know. You don't even know it, one way or the other. That's bad. You say, God hit 1,000 when he chose Elijah Muhammad. He hit 1,000 when he chose Louis Farrakhan. And the rest of us are rough guesses. You have insulted the intelligence of the Lord of the worlds. If, in fact, you really believe that Master Farad Muhammad is the one who came to build that which will never die, and you and I are in a building tonight, right? Yes, sir. Didn't it take a knowledge of material to build this building? Yes, sir. Huh? Yes, do you think you can build a world that's going to last forever and be only intelligent about 2 men? You've insulted God every day of your life that you're in the nation that you think like that. And you're insulting yourself. You're insulting and putting down the very process that brought you into being, that God himself initiated. Have you thought of it just like that? Now, how many of the names of the gods of the past do you know? I'm giving you a piece of homework. How many Holy Qur'ans have been written during roughly the last 66 trillion years? I want you, since you already know, you've already got the information, you've been here long enough to know, most all of you, that these histories are written once every 25,000 years, right? So divide 25,000 into 66 trillion. Do that later on tonight. Tell me what figure you come up with. And where are those books? How long would it take you to read them? How long would it take you to read such books? Maybe you can't answer that. But where might such books be stored? Maybe you can't answer that. You might have a guess. You got material in your books, in your literature that might give you a guess about that. But you can get a pretty fair assessment, or figure rather, about dividing 25,000 into 66 trillion. That means that one person acted as judge of the writing of the other 23 times 66 trillion times, right? Or times a number of times. Times 25,000 into 66 trillion. Did you get that? Yes, sir. Want me to say it again? Yes, okay. How many times have these 25,000-year histories been written in the last 66 trillion years? Well, you find that out by dividing 25,000 into 66 trillion. It gives you a number. Not that those men lived 25,000 years, but at least tells you what happened in the year 1 now. The same number you're going to come up with is the same number of men who acted as judge over those writings, correct? Yes, sir.
How many men? How many men are? What's the number? And how come you don't know their names? We haven't got nothing like that in this teaching, nor have we ever gotten a promise that we would know their name. We know the name of Yaqub. He didn't write a history of the last 25,000 years. He didn't act as judge over writing. Yet we got his name, don't we? We know his name. And it's one of the most popular, or the most popular man's name, at least by what I saw as of 2 weeks ago. The most popular man's name in America is Jacob. Next is Michael, according to what white folks said in the Cleveland newspaper. Now, why am I asking you something like that? It's to stimulate your mind along a certain line that I hope that we can progress with tomorrow. Have you ever thought about that? And you have on page 100 through page 122 of Message to the Black Man that you have already read and mastered, memorized by heart just about, that prior to 66 trillion years ago, those histories were written for 35,000 years, right? How far back? How far back? Roughly how far back? I want you to give me some figures tomorrow, because we're going to deal with this. I want you, brothers and sisters, I hope that I can stretch your mind a little bit. You ask yourself, what could you pay for this? I asked Brother Mark in North Carolina, who works that kind of thing. He, Speakers Bureau. I went and did what I did there, 10 talks in 6 days. At the end of maybe 5 or 6 of them, I asked Brother Mark, how do you figure this? How do you figure out what a speaker is worth? How do you figure all that kind of stuff? And what I did that you heard me do so far, how much would a person get paid for doing what I did? And he laughed. He said, oh, man, he wouldn't even know how to figure that. He said, brother, he was scratching his head. He said, well, maybe, look, Maya Angelou gets $50,000 for saying some poetry. What's the general's name? Colin Powell gets $75,000 for making a speech that says what? So the point we were both making from different angles was, you can't pay for this. And you could never pay me for the little that I know, that I've accumulated since 1955. No way in hell you could pay me. If you gave me all that you got, that's not enough. And would it be very much? Huh? Come on, let's be real. If Master Farad Muhammad did the study and came here and worked a certain man up to a point, the proper point where he could meet him and talk with him and fill him up, then that man has experience for years with the word. And then at a certain point he consciously works on Minister Farrakhan. Hey, you can't pay for that. What do you think went into Minister Farrakhan to make a call that produced the Million Man March? The word came out of his mouth not long before it happened. But what happened leading up to that? How much would you pay for the Holy Quran? Go back there 15,000 years ago. Meet the scientists who wrote the Quran. How much would you pay them? They go on a fast, maybe 14, 15 days. Then they confer, they begin to write. This man looking thousands of years in advance. How much do you pay somebody for that? You don't pay him. So what do you do about it? You study. There's nothing you can give. What could you give Minister Farrakhan for giving your life? Say, well, I'll make you a trade. What could you give him? A bowl of soup, or 50 bowls of soup, or $1,000? Or you could buy him another car. He got all the cars he wants. You know? I mean, another suit. He can open up a store right now. What are you going to give him? That would satisfy him. Nothing. The only thing that satisfies that man is the successful completion of what he's about. So I put in the paper straight up, and I put it in a different form for this room. So on our simple level, we need to study, don't we? But does God study? You say, well, Master Farad Muhammad studied. Well, how does he study? How does a man study to be able to bring to the rest of us the origin of the first man, how the first man got himself together? He pulled 10,000 parts together or elements to make one atom. What the hell do we know about that? Was he conscious when he did that? How conscious were you at the point of conception? Your conception. After 4 or 5 months, were you conscious? You reacted. We reacted in our mother's womb. She could put thoughts in our mind and shape us up. But how much of that were you and I conscious? How many of us remember the very moment when you and I were born? Passed through the birth channel. If you raise your hand, you're outright lying. You could say you had a dream. That could just be anything. You don't know nothing about that. How much do you remember the first 6 months of your life? So you were not conscious, were you? Well, here we have a teaching that takes us back into the first God's subconscious. And nobody disputes it. All the critics of Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, they never deal with the basis of where we're coming from, do they? They deal with superficialities, or they set up straw man arguments, knock them down, and say they won. You know? Or pretend that we chose one team over another team. I'm sure how ridiculous it is. It's like we chose, I don't know, who's playing tomorrow the next day, I don't know. Whatever. Team A, Team B, and Team A beats Team B, and they'll associate us with Team B and say, well, we won, yours wrong. We got nothing to do with that. They bring up matters or situations that have no connection with what Muslims are all about. And then some of us are so lightweight, we get all emotionally involved because some critic don't like us. So what? There's people writing books all the time. Megiddo and this one and that one. So what? So why should you get all wound up because somebody put in a book that they don't like you and think you're a liar? Why not do like the Holy Quran says, pass by them nobly? But you can't pass by them nobly if you have a lightweight knowledge of what you say you believe in. So I'm not challenging your belief, not today or not tomorrow. I didn't come here to do that. But I hope to stretch your mind. And I start you up by asking you to go home tonight and think about how many of these judges of the writings were there? They're gods. How many of them were they? How many? Does God have to study to maintain his position as supreme being? You ever thought about it? One day I thought about it. I had never thought about it before. I thought about it then. I said, wow, that's an interesting question. Do you have to study? You say, but we're not him. But if you stay in this teaching, we know from this teaching, from what we've heard, this teaching grows you. That's where you're going. A full developed brother and sister is a god or a goddess, unlike the way we are right now. The brother who mentioned self-discipline, who was that? The brother over here. Discipline is like her name, hard to come by. That's what is said by one rabbi one day about what the word means in that language. Something that's hard to come by, but it's worth it, isn't it? Can you accomplish anything that you can think of without first having knowledge? Forget the practice and the discipline, everything else, knowledge. Now, wouldn't you like to, before you leave the planet, get acquainted with all the powers of your being? Would not you love to have the opportunity to explore every power that you were born with? Why not? Why live an unexplored, dull, ignorant life? All of you want to be rich, don't you? But if you're not knowledgeable, you can't hold on to the riches that you gain. But if you were rich and yet ignorant of yourself, you'd live a poor, miserable life. You'd be happy for a couple of days. All of us in here have been poor all of our lives. I don't care what you got. The richest brother or sister here, and you make a lot of money in this city, you're still poor compared to what you should have. And even what you got, you know it's not enough. How many paychecks are you away from being in the street? I mean, and in your bank account, do you have about $4.5 million? Aren't there a lot of white folks that got millions or $797,000, something like $800,000? And they be wrestling with where to invest 5 or 10 grand. Most of us don't have no money. You can't invest 5 or 10,000 in nothing. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So you're poor, right?
Yes, sir.
Look, by the way, if anybody did anybody take BET last night? I need to get that before I leave. That's a heavy program. I'll talk about that tomorrow. But if you know anybody who's connected with that station, maybe somebody in the audience, that was a powerful program. You had an African brother on who was the symbolic king of Togo, saying that Africa should apologize for the brothers and sisters in this country as a first step or a major step toward tightening our relationship. It was a beautiful statement. And they had the brother Randall Robinson on. Debt, you know. Don't you think we should get paid? Have you thought of it like that? You know, our problem is we're short-sighted, plus we're narrow-minded. Short-sighted, narrow-minded. Now I'm going to ask you right now, does God study? In 5 more minutes, does God study? Why? Who can tell me that he studies, but why? What makes you say that? I've already helped you with it. Sister in the back. You. Sister Poppy, I don't know your name. Does God study? Why? What does it do for him personally? Makes God a better person. God can get better? That's an interesting statement, isn't it? Can God get better? By what? By means of what? Explain yourself. That's okay. No, that's okay. She says yes, but I'm going to do this very quickly. I want you to go home thinking. This makes you think? Yes, does God study? You don't have to come all the way up, sister. That's okay. The question is, my sister, you said she had a thought in her mind. It makes him a better person. Can God get better? And better and better and better? You're not sure. That's what I want. I wanted to upset your thinking. You ain't been thinking about God recently. Not deep, have you? Can God get wiser? Who's teaching him? Any opinion about that? Huh? You and I got to interact with something outside of ourselves. Another person, a book, a whatever. Some parts of the creation. Are you independent of everybody else? Are you independent of everybody's knowledge? Now, if you are God, you're absolutely independent. Then where are you growing? How are you growing? Where is the basis of that kind of growth? I think if you come out here tomorrow, come on time and come ready to deal. But I want you to think about this. You say God is a man. Is he like a Negro? He's not like a Negro? Tell me 2 or 3 areas where he differs from a common, ordinary Negro. Just a regular Negro. Not lazy. God is industrious? What else? I guess huh? He's independent. He knows himself. Independent of what? You're not too sure about what you're saying, are you? Huh? Independent, but yet he created himself with needs. Otherwise, he wouldn't have produced woman, right? Think about what you're talking about now. The first man came here. He had some problems he had to deal with, externally and internally. But he created himself with needs, but with the capacity to satisfy his own needs. You and I are like that? Huh? In unity, in a sense, we're like that. Are we not? Is this causing you to scratch your head a little bit? If we are on a road that leads to the full resurrection of ourselves, resurrection also means what? Full self-development, does it not? What's at the end of the road? What is that? God. What's your conception of yourself being perfect? And how far away is that from your present conception of God? I'll say it again. I'll ask it again. What's your present conception of yourself as a perfect human being? And how does it differ or agree, either way, with your present conception of the Supreme Being? Silence in the house. I don't care who's teaching. I don't care what they're talking about. You can't say with truth. You can lie, but you can't say with truth that you come to a meeting and gain nothing out of it unless you're bored. And you're bored because that's something you did to yourself. There was a young sister a few years back. Her mother called me and told me that her daughter, brilliant young sister, was about to drop out of school. She had just a few months to go, 6 months, whatever, because she was bored. Muslim children generally are bored with the devil's educational system. She was bored. So I talked with the young sister on the phone. We talked about 90 minutes. Guess what the subject was? Boredom. I discussed with her why she was bored so deep it made boring interesting. We dealt with boredom. And after a while, she got very interesting in these boring teachings and these boring subjects, so much so she didn't drop out. And you say, well, I know all of this. No, you don't. Why is it that when you pick up the books, you open them, you see things that you didn't see before? The words haven't moved. It's you. If you come with that kind of an attitude, all you're saying is you forgot what this was about. Or, guess what? You never really learned why God brought you here, or you don't even know that the Supreme Being handpicked you. You might act a little different if you ever came to realize that. Now, can that be proven? How can you do it? If we talk long enough, one-on-one. I know by the help of Allah, from what I know of this teaching, I can prove to you from the stuff coming out your mouth. I don't care how hard you fight it. You were handpicked, and way down in you, you knew it a long time ago, but you had been fighting it. You express it all kind of ways, mostly negative. One way you say it is, don't nobody understand me. You thought about how weird you are. You probably was. There's a whole lot you can go into that. Some of you say, well, he or she or I was very, very nasty and funky. And you think Allah didn't know that? There's nothing that we have done on the funk side he don't know. And he factors the funk that we did into his resurrection of us. We have all kind of stupid statements that we make, such as, I don't want to come down there, I ain't ready yet. Or I ain't clean enough yet. Some of us said that. That is so ignorant. That's like your wife running a hot tub of water, foamy and nice and whatever is in it, and you come home and you don't want to get in it because you are not clean enough yet. It is as stupid as saying that. And I'm telling you, all the reasons that we give to ourselves, God, devil, everybody, for not doing what we should do, every one of them are class A stupid. It's the last series of dumb things we say before we finally wake up. Because the next stage after all that stupidity is to get awoke. Follow me? The next stage after all those dumb comments, we could spend all night on that, is statements that make sense. You're just one step away from getting it together. And the more of them dumb statements you make, you don't realize that you're showing symptoms that you're getting ready to get up. And when you deal with one another, oftentimes we misread. Like going on a fast, for example. Haven't you experienced going on a fast and you feel kind of bad and funny in the legs and whatnot? Now, a person who's knowledgeable says, but all that's good. Those symptoms are good. But you're feeling bad. They say, but it's good. Meaning they see what you don't see from the eyes of their knowledge. Brothers, you know how to, any of you automobile mechanics? Anybody? Anybody all know anything about what a miss is in a car? 2 brothers. Well, the average one of us don't know what a miss is. We don't hear it. But the mechanic, the person that knows about it, can hear the miss. But the person that doesn't have the knowledge can't hear it. Knowledge lets you hear and see what otherwise you can't hear and see. Knowledge makes you sensitive and aware of that which ignorance absolutely makes you unaware of. Renders you unaware. You're not even aware of it. Make sense? Yes, sir. We should. Have you ever heard of Tony Ayala? Any of you? How many of you would like to get out of debt? Now, I bought some tapes that Minister Kadir has. He's got them. He got them for about a week or 2. I don't know how long he's had them. I can't deal with that now, but on those tapes, 2 of your brothers and our brothers, Minister from Louisville, Kentucky, and the one minister from Minister Gerald from Louisville, Kentucky, and Minister Thomas from Lexington, Kentucky. It took about an hour. They know how they have mastered, because they're proving it in their own lives, the knowledge of how to deal with credit bureaus, how to deal with it in a masterful way, how to get certain things wiped off, things that they have learned, so-called white folks insiders knowledge. You know, the Bible said that the slaves were learned it in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. They just didn't know who they were. And you got, I don't know, you probably got some CIA people working in here. I don't know what you do, but my point is this. It's really immaterial. I don't care if you were paid a whole lot of money and you're here to do your thing, because you, what the hell are you going to bring back that they don't already know? The white folks don't have to send an agent in. They can just bug you. Sit down where they are and press a button and get the whole meeting. They got our literature. In fact, a lot of them know the teachings better than a lot of us. I hope to show you a clip out of a CIA program called Inside the CIA. Did you see that on a few weeks ago in Frontline? Oh, you missed something. You missed something. I thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.